Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakacharya Sataraswati Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Abhaya Charavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jaya Nityalila Pavishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakacharya Astataraswati Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhāgavatam Ki. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, and Srila Prabhupada. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita, Additional Pastimes. Chapter titled Opening a Temple in Los Angeles. It was only 4 days after Prabhupada's arrival. He had just risen from an afternoon's rest, walked into the front room, and there was Subal. Prabhupada was surprised. Subal was supposed to be in Santa Fe. "My wife has left me," Subal burst out, and a sad tale followed. Subal told how he had left his wife Krishna Devi Dasi alone at the Santa Fe temple for a few days and gone to New York to visit his parents. Meanwhile, Krishna Devi had run away with a boy who had been visiting the temple, and she had decided to stay with him and give up her husband. "Don't worry," Prabhupada told Subala. "Everything will be all right. I will write a letter to Krishna Devi and tell her to come back to you. You can go back to Santa Fe tomorrow and everything will be all right." Subal left the next morning for Santa Fe, and Prabhupada, although calm in Subal's presence, began to show deep disturbance over the sordid affair. Krishna Devi was his disciple, and he had performed the sacred marriage ceremony for her and Subal. He had asked them to be an ideal couple cooperating together in Krishna consciousness. Together they had gone to start the center in New Mexico. Don't be discouraged, he told them, even though no one may come to hear you. Still you chant and hear. But now Krishna Devi had simply left the temple and her husband. When Subal arrived in Santa Fe, he found that Krishna Devi and her boyfriend Randy had left town. Meanwhile in Los Angeles, Prabhupada received a letter from Krishna Devi. She said she wanted to stay in Krishna consciousness, but with her new boyfriend. This is all nonsense, Prabhupada exclaimed. I will simply go back to Vrindavan and sit and chant Hare Krishna. Why should I do this? Why should I deal with this quarrel between husband and wife? This is not the business of a sannyasi. Prabhupada wrote a letter to Krishna Devi in care of the Santa Fe temple. Your recent activities have been very much upsetting to each and every member of our society. I never expected that you should act in this way. If you love me at all and Krishna at all, you should immediately return back either to me or to your husband without delay. In your letter, it is understood that you are repenting. You have done a great mistake. Come back and everything will be all right. To Subal, Prabhupada wrote, I'm very sorry to learn about your present plight. You must be feeling a great shock for the separation. But there is a great lesson also. Anyway, if you are feeling too heavy-hearted, you may come here and live with me for some time. I hope I shall be able to ease your heaviness. But before Prabhupada's letter arrived, Subal had already left Santa Fe for Los Angeles, thinking, I can't take this anymore. I'm going back to Swamiji. Sitting on his porch, taking his noontime massage, Prabhupada suddenly saw Subal, looking more miserable than ever, coming up the sidewalk. Subal, Prabhupada called out, remaining seated. Subal approached and offered obeisances before Srila Prabhupada, who sat in the California sunshine and dressed only in an Indian gamcha, while Gaurasundar massaged him with mustard oil. You did not get my letter? Prabhupada asked. No, Subal replied. Yes, Prabhupada, you have got my letter. I have written you and told you that if you are feeling too heavy-hearted, you may come here and live with me for some time. Subal said, so I moved into the crowded front room of Swamiji's apartment. I slept in the living room right outside of Swamiji's room, and there was only a curtain separating us. At night I could hear him dictating Srimad Bhāgavatam. He asked me to carve some Radha Krishna deities for him. I had already carved some Jagannath deities, and now Swamiji said he wanted Radha Krishna deities carved. So I bought a block of mahogany and began carving Radha Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki. See how Prabhupada engaged these devotees. Additional pastimes.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought I read that.
Many devotees had left the movement by the time this was being written. And it took some time to gather all these memories, and many memories did not come until after the first series was printed. But
They don't have it on the Kindle version. They don't have that 7th volume on the Kindle version.
No. They should, right? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhāgavatam, 3rd Canto, 22nd chapter, verses 12 through 15. Chapter titled, Entanglement in Fruitive Activities. I'll read the verses, and then we'll go back and chant which verse is best. We'll chant the first verse. So we'll just read them all together. Ajakshira charanangyo Vedagarbhak sahashibi Yogeshwarai Kumaradhyay Siddhar Yoga Pravatakai Vedadristya Bhimanena Niksangena Pikarmana Kartridvasa Gunang Brahma Purushang Purushashabam Sasangrischa Punakale Kalineshwara Murtina Jate Guna Vritikare Yata Purvang Prajayate Aishwaryang Paramesyang Cha Tepi Dharma Vinirmitam Nusevya Purna Ayanti Guna Vyati Karesati. And you can just chant the first verse. Go ahead. Adyakshira charanang yo Vedagarbhak sahashibi Yogeshwarai Kumaradhyay Siddhar Yoga Pravatakai Adyakshirang charanang yo Vedagarbha sahashibi Yogeshwarai Kumaradhyay Siddhar Yoga Pravatakai Ajakshira Charanang Yo Vedagarbha Sahashibi Yogeshwarai Kumaradhyay Siddhar Yoga Pravatakai Adyakshira charanang yo Vedagarbhak sahashibi Yogeshwarai Kumaradhyay Siddhar Yoga Pravatakai Adyakshira charanang yo Vedagarbhak sahashibi Yogeshwarai Kumaradhyay Siddhar Yoga Pravatakai. Ladies. Adyakshira charanang yo Vedagarbhak sahashibi Yogeshwarai Kumaradhyay Siddhar Yoga Pravatakai Adyakshira charanang yo Vedagarbhak sahashibi Yogeshwarai Kumaradhyay Siddhar Yoga Pravatakai. Anyone else? Adya, the Creator, Lord Brahma, Stira Charanam, of the immobile and mobile manifestations. Ya, he who, Vedagarbha, the repository of the Vedas, Saha, along with Rishabhi, the sages, Yoga Ishvarai, with great mystic yogis, Kumara Adhyay, the Kumaras and others, Siddhai, with the perfected living beings. Everybody following along there? Yoga Pravatakai, the authors of the yoga system, Veda Dristya, because of independent vision. Abhimanena. Shri Shivara Govindadev ki jai. Nikshangena. Non-fruitive. Api. Although. Karmana. By their activities. Kartritvat. From the sense of being a doer. Sagunam, possessing spiritual qualities. Brahma, Brahman. Purusham, the personality of Godhead. Purusharashabham, the first Purusha incarnation. Sa, he, Sangristya, having attained. Punak, again. Kale, at the time. Kalena, by time. Ishvaramurtina, the manifestation of the Lord. Jate guna vratikare, when the interaction of the modes arises. Yata, as. Purvam, previously. Prajayate, is born. Aishvaryam, opulence. Parameshtyam, royal. Cha, and. Te, the sages. Api, also. Dharma, by their pious activities. Vinirmitam, produced. Nikshevya, having enjoyed. Puna, again. Ayanti, they return. Gunavyatikare sati, when the interaction of the modes takes place. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. My dear mother, someone may worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a special self-interest. But even demigods such as Lord Brahma, great sages such as Sanat Kumar, and great munis such as Marichi have to come back to the material world again at the time of creation. When the interaction of the three modes of material nature begins, Brahma, who is the creator of this cosmic manifestation and who is full of Vedic knowledge, and the great sages who are the authors of the spiritual path and the yoga system, come back under the influence of the time factor. They are liberated by their non-fruitive activities and they attain the first incarnation of the Purusha. But at the time of creation, they come back in exactly the same forms and positions as they had previously. Purport. That Brahma becomes liberated is known to everyone, but he cannot liberate his devotees. Demigods like Brahma and Lord Shiva cannot give liberation to any living entity. As it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, only one who surrenders unto Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, can be liberated from the clutches of Maya. Brahma is called here Adya Stira Charanam. He is the original, first created living entity. And after his own birth, he creates the entire cosmic manifestation. He was fully instructed in the matter of creation by the Supreme Lord. Here he is called Veda Garbha, which means that he knows the complete purpose of the Vedas. He is always accompanied by such great personalities as Marichi, Kashyapa, and the seven sages, as well as by great mystic yogis, the Kumaras, and many other spiritually advanced living entities. But he has his own interests separate from the Lord's. Veda Drishya means that Brahma sometimes thinks that he is independent of the Supreme Lord, or he thinks of himself as one of the three equally independent incarnations. Brahma is entrusted with creation, Vishnu maintains, and Rudra, Lord Shiva, destroys. The three of them are understood to be incarnations of the Supreme Lord in charge of the three different material modes of nature. But none of them is independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here the word Veda Drishya occurs because Brahma has a slight inclination to think that he is as independent as Rudra. Sometimes Brahma thinks that he is independent of the Supreme Lord, and the worshipper also thinks that Brahma is independent. For this reason, after the destruction of this material world, when there is again creation by the interaction of the material modes of nature, Brahma comes back. Although Brahma reaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the first Purusha incarnation, Mahavishnu, who is full with transcendental qualities, he cannot stay in the spiritual world. The specific significance of his coming back may be noted. Brahma and the great rishis and the great master of yoga, Shiva, are not ordinary living entities. They are very powerful and have all the perfections of mystic yoga. But still they have an inclination to try to become one with the Supreme, and therefore they have to come back. In the Srimad Bhāgavatam, it is accepted that as long as one thinks that he is equal with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is not completely purified or knowledgeable. In spite of going up to the first Purusha avatar, Mahavishnu, after the dissolution of this material creation, such personalities again fall down or come back to the material creation. It is a great fall down on the part of the impersonalist to think that the Supreme Lord appears within a material body, and that one should therefore not meditate upon the form of the Supreme Lord, but should meditate instead on the formless. For this particular mistake, even the great mystic yogis or great stalwart transcendentalists also come back again when there is creation. All living entities other than the impersonalists and monists can directly take to devotional service in full Krishna consciousness and become liberated by developing transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such devotional service develops in the degrees of thinking of the Supreme Lord as Master, as Friend, as Son, and at last as Lover. These distinctions in transcendental variegatedness must always be present. Om Jnana Tamrandasya Garanjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Tamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Mankai Digari Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dirataranam. Very coincidental that we're reading that section in Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita. And here we have the entanglement and fruitive activities. So there's no relief in the material world, even if one is situated in spiritual life. Padam padam yadvi padam natesham. There's always danger at every step. This situation is not, how can you say, unique. As we can see, the material world is fraught with such situations. It's almost as if we still have this tendency to remain independent, just like when we're rising up, as it's described here. Even the great personalities become somewhat stuck because they have not yet given up that sense of independence. And so it is this minute sense of independence which is the breeding ground for all of our distress in the material world. In that instance, the young lady was thinking that she's independent of the spiritual master, independent of the husband, and therefore free to do anything and everything according to her own desire. So this independent desire, if it is not subdued, and how is it subdued? One has to, somehow or other, manmana bhava mad bhakto. He has to always endeavor to think how he is connected to Krishna. And that begins by every day remembering our position, even at the first instance of rising. And you see sometimes they have these videos, and we all know it perfectly, how it happens. If a person leaves home for a long time and he comes back, the family, every family member, even the animals, are usually very happy to see that person. So in a situation, we can appreciate that there's this connection. But sometimes that connection, when it is not firmed up, then one drifts away. He thinks that this relationship is no longer valid for me. We hear so many stories about soldiers going overseas, and when they come back, the wife or the husband is nowhere to be found. In that absence of time, 12 months, 9 months, person thought, well, I need to find someone. This person is not here. Even though they may have taken some vows. So it is not just here, it's not just that demigods are experiencing these things, but every living entity is sharing these same desires, because ultimately every spirit soul has that minute independence. The nature of this Tatashta Shakti is that he's marginal. He's going back and forth. He's not steady. He becomes steady by taking up this process. Vyavasayamika buddhi. He learns how to focus. It's like people who go into seminars, how to become expert in their field of business. And they get some tips and tricks, how to apply themselves, how to utilize certain instruments as like in the early days when, I can't exactly say one of our Garbalas, Atreya Rishi, he was very expert in the material field of activities. And so Prabhupada would count on him to impart certain aspects of his successful business life on Wall Street and whatnot. And one of the things, he said that everyone should make an endeavor to manage his time. Time management, very common. Even our dear Yugal Kishore wrote time management in his trilogy. Time management, anger management, stress management. So they started this, everyone in all the temples, all the managers started to be seen with these, what they call day timers. I think Vaisheshika still uses his day timer. It's a little like they had several different iterations. And day timer was a brand name. Franklin Planner was a name. It was all before PDAs and phones that could do supercomputer actions. And people were learning how to set up their time individually. Even one of our early folk heroes, when I was young, was using this type of method in the late 60s. And so everyone wanted to follow in this time management. It became a big thing. So, but the real time management, first we have to understand, whose time is it? Is it my time? Is it the spiritual master's time? Is it Krishna's time? This time is meant to be utilized only for one purpose, atato brahma jigyasa. Otherwise, time is the black snake. This is how it is compared, this kala sarp. This black snake is every day stealing your life. Every single day. And if you're not using it in Krishna's service, what is it being used for? If you're simply sitting around and trying to have some social intercourse, then this is stealing time. You're actually stealing the spiritual master's time. The devotees, tushanti charamanti cha, they sit together, they read together, they share. In the evenings in Henry Street, everyone will come back after a very hard day. First in the morning, you're cleaning the temple. Then you're going out on street Sankirtan for 8 hours. And then you come back and you have the Gora Arti. Wonderful way to finish the day. Bhagavad Gita, Gora Arti. Prabhupada called it a transcendental sandwich. Has everyone heard that term? Transcendental sandwich. The morning and the evening programs. And then after that, everyone went upstairs to the galleries. Seen that picture of Srila Prabhupada sitting in his rocking chair. That's the gallery in the museum, Prabhupada said. That is the original rocking chair. But even in Prabhupada's absence, the devotees will gather every single night for hot milk, popcorn, and Krishna book. So this went on for years. This was our daily function. Didn't come back and split off into little groups and go here and there. No, everyone was together all the time because that is the strength. That is how we understand how everyone is doing. Someone is not there, you have to wonder, where is Prabhu? Where did he go? Why is he not here? So these things were not just some mistake that for a few years they did like this because whatever, maybe we're all neophytes, we needed to have Krishna book at night. Prabhupada said, read Krishna book at night and you will dream of Krishna. And done together like that and sharing the hot milk together, these things breed solidarity. You cannot, why is it such a unique thing? Everyone has some camaraderie. They have that remembrance. But there's this Henry Street Temple, there's such a strong bond between the devotees who serve there. Why? Because of these jointly engaged activities. And we see this in other places. In the military, they have such things. People who served on the same post, the same base, the same ship, they share some bond. But there's no bond like this Krishna Consciousness Association. And that's why the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, not the International Society for individuals who want to identify as devotees and be rubber stamped and say, yes, I'm a devotee. That's there. But in all of these affairs, whether it's one's vows at the time of initiation, one's vows at the time of marriage, these things are sacred. But you have to appreciate what does that mean. Look at grandfather Bhishma, that vow that he took, inviolable. He could not be dissuaded, not by any temptation, not by any means, that he would not get married, he would not have offspring. It is such a prominent part in the Mahabharata. But why? Why stress that? Because vows are sacred. And vows make one a person to be respected. And if one takes his vows seriously, then automatically he has some Brahma Tejas. He has some potency. And he can do things on behalf of the spiritual master. He can perform activities that others only wonder, how can that person do like that? How is he able to do that? And so this is how we can appreciate the effectiveness of sincerity and engagement in spiritual life. And the more one applies himself, you'll see the difference. Time management. This time is very... Sanatana Goswami wanted to commit suicide, so today is the day of Rath Yatra. So we can imagine at some point, 500 years ago, Sanatana Goswami wanted to commit suicide under the wheel of the Rath Yatra cart. Does it say which cart? Is it Jagannath's cart, Balaram's cart, Subhadra's cart? I can't remember. But it was committing suicide under one of the carts. Because this is described in the Shastra that anyone who leaves like that, he immediately attains Vaikuntha. But he was stopped. Of course, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the super soul in everyone's heart. Can immediately understand. So he stopped him. He was thinking like that. He was just thinking. Immediately Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and confronted him and says, you cannot do this thing. He said, this is not your body. This is my body. I have many things to do with your body. You just imagine if Sanatana Goswami had committed suicide. Where would the Vedic pantheon be? What would we have? It was a Jagannath cart. Such a huge gap would be there if he had somehow or other fulfilled his idea. And what do they call that? You know what that's called? Ideation. When one is meditating on suicide, it's called suicidal ideation. One is meditating, thinking, feeling, willing. It's very dangerous to meditate on such things. And people know it, and they try to rectify it. You have to interrupt this infatuation, It's very difficult, though, just like anything else. Because they don't really have any other goal, so this becomes their goal now. I will commit suicide. I will do this thing. I will do that thing. In spite of knowing the consequences, they act. Anyway, we should have a similar meditation. How to become successful in spiritual life. How to become determined. I mean, it's described, it's there. All the formulas, that mad karma krin mad paramo, man mana bhava mad bhakto. All these things are there. Just have to think of Krishna and act in His behalf. Satatam kirtayantamam. Always chanting His glories, endeavoring with great determination, and bowing down before Him. So this is our life, actually. Everything we do every day, how many times? If you count how many times you're bowing down, coming and going from the temple, coming and greeting the deities, coming and offering flowers to the spiritual master. So it is just suitable for those who are serious about spiritual life. And many cannot appreciate it. They say, why am I bowing down so much? Why do I have to do this? Some people you see, they leave the temple room, they come in and they go out and they don't bow down. They get lazy. Why? What is the point? I bowed down once already today. Why do I have to do it every single time? Why not do it every time? What is the problem? When I withhold this sense of obligation, then my sadhana becomes weak, because I think it is just a ritual. It has no meaning. And sometimes people say, oh, you guys are just fanatics. But they don't know what is the goal. So if you know what is the goal, then there's nothing fanatical about it. Strict adherence to the principles is not fanaticism. When they say, and Prabhupada thought that when he came, when I tell them no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling, they would say, go home. Go back to your country. But anyone who's following this path, he knows what the end result is, what the purpose, how it's achieved through the strength of mind. It is such a rare achievement. Truly, it is a diamond. And Prabhupada said, you cannot purchase a diamond cheaply. Everyone can say, yes, here's mantra, here's this. But what is the value? Something valuable is not easy to obtain. Not easy to attain and not easy to obtain. But here we have everything. There's no more valuable jewel than spiritual life. The goal of human life. This is the goal. But yet still people can't bring their intelligence to bear that at some point I'm going to die. And what is the necessity at that point? Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tujatante kalevam. It doesn't matter that you think, 50 years I have to do this. 50 years? How is it possible? How can I continue? 50, 60 years? But if someone said 50, 60 years, you will get $1 billion. They would think, okay, yes, I will do whatever it takes. But at the time of death, the most valuable thing, the ability, dearest touch on the muyate, that calmness, that steadiness, and the transition, which is most difficult for most people, when they're gasping for air, when their throats are filled with, that they can only gag. But that if you can see the lotus feet of Mukunda, of Radha Govinda, of Radha Shyam Sundar, then the human form of life for you has been that vehicle. But this is, again, people can't look ahead. This is a great, and therefore they don't see the consequences. That's why this young lady could run away from her husband, because she couldn't see the consequences. What is the reaction for that? Who knows what is the reaction? If you look at the 5th canto, it's a very great, you have to embrace the form of a molten man or woman, those who have been unfaithful. You know that, Arjunananda? Forced to embrace the molten form. What hellish planet is that?
I don't know, but it's Iron Maiden.
It's worse than the Iron Maiden.
Isn't that what they're embracing?
Iron Maiden was, it folded open like a coffin and it had spikes inside.
No, I'm just saying it's a literal
Yeah, it's a literal Iron Maiden or an Iron Gentleman. One of the, it's not just the Iron Maiden. Forced to embrace this burning effigy. Who knows? I mean, it's obviously it seems like an eternity. That's the point. Because on the subtle plane, time is distorted. It's like in your dreams, sometimes you think days are passing or years are passing. And you wake up and it's just a few hours. So when you go to that, because Prabhupada said that the total time between birth and death is 13 months. And 10 months in the womb, so 3 months in the hellish or heavenly planets. How does that work? Because the time is there, it's different. It's on a whole subtle level. So it's either compressed or it's expanded. And the hellish planets, because it's so, who can imagine? It feels like eternity, isn't that? Isn't that the case? And when you're enjoying, it feels so fleeting. When you're suffering, it feels like an eternity. And so there for 3 months or whatever it is, when will it end? So that's part of the hellish experience, that you never know when is it going to end. And the heavenly planets, you know, in the last year, you have 1 year to get your act together and perhaps rectify your situation, and you can go upwards. In hell, you can't go any place except back to the material world, back to the temporal, transitory plane of Bor Bhava, no swaha for you at that point. So we should be very careful. Here we're cultivating that same mood and mentality. The material world is always alluring. Her charm never wears off. There's no such thing. Maya doesn't become old. Sometimes you think, that what happens in the material world, a person thinks, my spouse is so old now, I have to get a new one. All right? As if I'm not old. Because this is the living entity, he has that unfortunate handicap that he can't understand how he's growing old. His mind is still young. He still wants to enjoy. But his body can no longer enjoy. He has to take help from some drugs. I probably gave a very graphic example of the Marwari gentleman. Marwari in India means synonymous with rich person. They're coming originally from the gold and jewel dealers in Rajasthan, but they settled in Calcutta. So for generations they're in Calcutta, because that was the capital of India for many years. Marwaris, very rich. So one man was so rich, he was in his 70s, and he still wanted to enjoy sex life. So he flew to Germany to get some operation. And Prabhupada said, for some hormones or something. He said, you know better. But basically they take the hormones from the monkeys. Not just the hormones. They would take the genitals and implant them. How gross is that? Is that gross or not? It's gross. Just to try to enjoy a few years more. And Prabhupada is saying these things. Why? Because he wants us to be aware how degraded the material world is. What is the problem? You take your vows before the spiritual master, before the fire of Vishnu, before the deities, before the devotees. Stick with that vow. The same vow you take for initiation. I will chant my rounds every day. I will follow the four-legged principle. I will not leave the association of devotees. That's implied. But people think that's optional. It is not optional. Why did Prabhupada go to so much trouble to form a society? Why don't you just say the international, individual Krishna consciousness? You go do what you like. I'll initiate you, go do what you like. No. Because this is sadhu sangha. This is not just some ordinary sangha. Sadhu sangha, sarva sastra koi. Lava macha sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hoy. If it was not for the association that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had formulated, there would not be any ISKCON. Because Prabhupada would not have appreciated everything that his guru had done in order to create the vehicle for spreading Krishna consciousness. Unfortunately, that vehicle could not continue due to dissension and division. And that has also happened here. History repeats itself. But we don't have to fall into the same trap. But unless everyone remains strong together, then that same failure is inevitable. Because people will just drift away, become divided. And no, I have my own sangha. And they have their own sangha. And they have their own interpretation. There is no other interpretation outside of Srila Prabhupada's books. And if it does not comport with the Prabhupada's purports, then it is not bona fide. And we use that term very specifically. So therefore, it is extremely important. I asked one devotee the other day, do you listen to Srila Prabhupada's lectures? I said, not much. Everyone is thinking, no, I listen to my guru, I listen to that guru. No. Why did Prabhupada go through so much trouble from the very beginning? What did he do? He got a tape recorder. You ever see these old reel-to-reel tape recorders? They're huge, bulky affairs. And you have to thread the reel. And it takes so much effort. And that's so, why? Because his words are not just like we have the purports. These are the purports to the purports. So if you think that this is important to read Prabhupada's books, then how much more important it is to hear Srila Prabhupada's transcendental vibrations and his realizations. Why do we have so much success selling which one book? Science of Self-Realization. Why is that? We sell many Bhagavad Gitas, but Science of Self-Realization is special. Why? Because it's Prabhupada giving directly, individually, his realizations on a specific time and circumstance. So valuable for us for many reasons. For self-application and for preaching. And so these things should not be minimized. Everyone should be making every possible effort to listen to Srila Prabhupada daily. Now it's so easy. Everyone has this computer. You go to one side. If you think, there are people would excuse, I can't understand Prabhupada's accent. Now you can see the transliteration right on the screen. Prabhupada speaking, and there's the English. So you're hearing and you're reading simultaneously. There's no excuse not to listen to Prabhupada's lectures. And if your mind is giving you an excuse, then you need to beat your mind with shoes or brooms. Like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's sterling recommendation. Such a simple thing. Which is it, Nathabara? Morning shoes or morning broom? And why is a broom such a bad thing?
I'm remembering shoes first and then broom in the night. But
in India, to be beaten with shoes or broom is a very great insult. Shows great disrespect. So basically you have to disrespect your mind. You have to beat it with shoes. Right? If someone hits you with a shoe, that's a great insult. You can kill him for that. No, you don't have to. But people think like that. Such a great insult. And why a broom? Because a broom is sweeping up some dirty place. But it also means sweeping out the dirty things from the mind. All right? Because you're beating the mind with the shoe, but then you're sweeping the mind with the broom. Can't beat anything with a broom. It's not hurt, doesn't hurt. So the broom is sweeping the mind, cleaning it from the dirty things.
Your first business is to beat the mind with shoes, and when you go to bed, you have to beat the mind with a broomstick.
Okay, with a broomstick. But everyone sees in India there's only two. There's a full jaro. You know what full jaro is? Soft broom. So then you have to use that danda jaru, that hard stick broom at night, not the soft one. Don't use full jaro. Anyway, so there's so many ways to take these chapter, verse, and along with Srila Prabhupada's difficulty in having to deal with these disciples and their lack of discipline. Disciple means discipline. Such a headache we gave to Srila Prabhupada. So we should not give any headache to the spiritual master. One should think that what am I doing? Am I doing something? Is this hurting my spiritual master? Is it helping him? Right? People apply this logic to all their businesses. Am I helping my business? Am I hurting my business? Am I helping my relationships? But they don't apply it to their most important relationship with the spiritual master and Krishna. Am I helping my relationship? Am I hurting my relationship? So that should be our focus. And that's why we stay true to the path. You don't want to wander off. It becomes very tricky. It takes a long time to come back. Like I said, a lot of these stories from the Lilamrita, we didn't know about these for years. Devotees spread far and wide. They left the association. Somehow or other, by some effort, we were able to gather that information. And still we have not heard all the stories. More will show up, you'll see. All the time it happens. Like Mr. Robert. We tell that story every once in a while. Mr. Robert lived here in this temple for a while. He took initiation from one godbrother. But he was gone who knows how many years, and then one year he just wandered into the temple in the middle of the night. A bum. Just came to the door. We didn't know who he was. And then he started asking for the Swami. He said, which so many Swamis. And then when he came in and he saw the picture of Prabhupada, which hangs in the lobby. This is the original picture since Henry Street. This picture has hung in every lobby, in every temple. Original picture painted by my godbrother Pushkar. Okay, so that Prabhupada specifically said this should hang in the hallway of the temple. And so he came in and he said, no, Swamiji. And we said, oh. He said, no, if you're calling Prabhupada Swamiji, that means this is before 1967. This person had, and then I told him, I said, Prabhupada passed away. This person was in tears, so emotional, such a connection he had. And we had no idea who he was. And then he started to talk and tell me about these things. And I said, oh, I need to contact Satyarup Maharaj and tell him about this person. Because this person was with Prabhupada at the Dr. Mishra's. And when Prabhupada had his studio, his office on 72nd Street, he would be there daily with Prabhupada, accompanying him on his journey to the grocery store, to this place, to that place. He knew so many things about Prabhupada that nobody else knew. It was a complete blank, because there was this is before ISKCON. There was a year gap. So anyway, so these things are there. So still, there are, who knows how many other people are there. So this is part of the never-ending pastime, transcendental, Leela of the Supreme Lord and His devotees. This is not a mundane situation, not a mundane society. How could it be a mundane society if it's started by a Vaikuntha person? All right, so it cannot be mundane. But somehow or other we still think that this is a material association. No. Great mistake to consider like that. So Prabhupada was so concerned that nobody should leave. Why? Because he understood that he could bring them back to Godhead, and if they left, then what happens? No. Like the demigods, they have to remain in the material world until the spiritual master comes back again at some point. Very great inconvenience for everyone involved. So this is the lesson. The Bhāgavatam is the answer. And Srila Prabhupada is giving us all the different angles so we can appreciate these answers. This is the actual definition of the spiritual master, is that he can give you the information according to time and circumstances, specifically for your situation. One of the specific qualities of the spiritual master. We should not try to misuse this time and circumstance concept. We don't have the ability to apply these things according to time and circumstance in such a way that the result is guaranteed. We may make some attempt, but it's not guaranteed. The better is just following Prabhupada's footsteps, no adjustments. People say, no, we're just adjusting time and circumstance for this type of preaching. No. Even the karmis say, if it's not broken, why fix it? So basically when you're saying I have to do something different, you're implying that Prabhupada's system is broken. It doesn't work anymore. It's too old school. I want to give a new twist. No. That is a big offense. One has to stick very strictly to what Srila Prabhupada has given us. Then success is assured. There's no doubt. Everything else is breaking the four regular principles by gambling. So don't gamble. Don't gamble with your life. Don't gamble with ISKCON's future, by trying to adjust something. Just stick clearly to the path. It's there. You can't miss it. It's got, what do they say when you can fly in an airplane and then they give you the whole routine and they say, the exits may be in front of you or behind you, but your path will be lighted. Right? So you always have to keep aware that the path is already lit. Mahajano yena gataksapanta. You just have to follow in those footsteps, and those footsteps are brightly illuminated. You can't miss them, unless, of course, you want to miss them. That's up to you. So let us stick closely to Srila Prabhupada's words, teachings, and his lotus feet, and we will never go wrong. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki jai. And questions we'll save for another time because it's late. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavinebhya Vaishmeva Namaha Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda ki. See, that's why we say Ananta Kotis. We don't have to say that. Ananta Koti business. Bhāgavatam is the answer.